Hi, I'm Tony. For anyone who doesn't know, I was a founding member of Droids Attack and was in the band until I quit in 2018. I've seen some false information being shared online, and since I'm not on social media, wanted a way for you to hear my perspective. I first started working with Brad in the late 90s when he reformed the band Daisy Had Maisie. Over time, our music got heavier and it morphed into what became Droids Attack. We were good friends. We even stood up in each other's weddings. It's fair to say I know Brad quite well. Over the years, I noticed more concerning and corrosive behavior. He would say something insulting, belittling, vindictive, and when called out on that behavior, he suddenly became the victim. Brad really enjoys adding fuel to a fire while pretending he's not holding the can of gasoline. He'd unironically complain about how dysfunctional the band was while avoiding any accountability for the very actions he took to inflame those situations. During the previous presidency, I started noticing parallels between the way Brad and Trump treat people. Since leaving the band, I read more about gaslighting and narcissism. Frankly, I was taken aback by how much of it reminded me of Brad. That filled in some blanks for me. I saw more clearly how he manipulates situations. So look, I'm no doctor. You may see things differently, but to me, the signs are unmistakable. So yeah, there was a lot of unnecessary drama, but that often originated from something Brad said or did, but refused to take responsibility for. He often seemed to not understand that words and actions have consequences. He acted like that didn't apply to him for some reason. If I did something wrong, I would want to hear it so I could become a better person. My instinct wouldn't be to immediately turn the situation into a no-holds-barred wrestling match. That's often the direction he took things. Brad often callously rejected reasonable concerns, which added unnecessary toxicity and drama. It was all about him all of the time, which, as you can imagine, was very tiresome. The most poignant example of Brad rejecting something reasonable is what led to Darwin and I quitting the band in 2018. So let's go back to that moment. It was morning 3 of our tour with the band Droids. We were in a McDonald's drive-thru. I was in the driver's seat, Darwin was in the front passenger seat, while Brad and his wife Jenny were in the back. Many months before the tour, we discussed how a per diem would be needed. That's only fair since we were literally working for that money every night. So in that drive-thru, I asked how we'd like to handle the per diem, and Brad had what I would describe as an intensely childish outburst. It was weird. He aggressively refused to allow anyone a per diem, to which Darwin responded that he was done. He would finish the tour, but he couldn't continue with someone so disrespectful. So think about that. Just think about that. How deeply disappointing. After contributing so much and never asking for anything from the band all those years, the one time I ask about a per diem, that's how he reacts? He didn't have a right to deny us that. We previously agreed it was okay. What a gross display of power. For those out there who are in bands, does that really sound like reasonable behavior? In bands, isn't it all for one and one for all? Well, I guess in Droids, it was just all for one. Oh, but according to Brad, he did nothing wrong. He has nothing to apologize for. It's all just a bunch of haters. Okay. My only regret in that moment was not having the clarity of mind to immediately say I quit along with Darwin. Given that I had so much invested in the project, it took me some time to process things and feel confident that it was the right answer. I was walking away from a huge personal investment. So let's be clear. Darwin quit the band that day. Full stop. Brad, you didn't fire him. It was only after your ridiculous outburst that he finally had enough of your selfishness. At no point did Brad inform me that I was out of the band or that the band had officially broken up. You claim to have made a definitive statement that you broke up the band. But that didn't happen. Yeah, as you mentioned online, we talked about collecting the gear after the tour ended, but that was because Darwin just quit the band. It's interesting that you conveniently left that part out when describing the situation. The reason we grabbed the gear is because we couldn't justify the practice spot if we weren't playing shows. Things were still very much up in the air, or at least so I thought. I wrestled with my feelings, and then reached out to clarify my intentions. And after a heartfelt letter reflecting on all the things I appreciated about Brad, the good times we had, along with a number of areas to address that could help elevate the band, Brad responds with a sarcastic reply. In fact, he responded by saying, "You writing to tell me why you chose to leave the band is a great example of why you were booted." Wow! That was news to me. I tried to keep things cordial, but Brad didn't want that. I don't know what I did to deserve that level of treatment. I tried earnestly to address any concerns he had about me. Unfortunately, Brad couldn't drop his guard down to give me the same courtesy. He intentionally made the breakup more difficult. So, even though I was the first person to breach the subject and clarify my intentions, somehow I didn't quit because Brad had already secretly broken up the band. Once again, okay. To Brad, I know it must not feel good to have your rhythm section quit on you. I assure you we didn't do it to hurt you. However, you don't get to suddenly become the victim or change the narrative just because you lost control of a situation that you instigated. From my perspective, we all contributed to issues in some ways. I mean, no one is perfect. Yet whenever we try to hash out issues, you typically refuse to take ownership for anything. Unnecessary frustration results when we don't acknowledge and address issues. Are you still claiming, in all seriousness, that you never did anything wrong? Really? I'm sure there are some watching this video who may feel confused because they've never seen that side of them. I understand that. The reality is, Brad was fun to be around most of the time. That's what most people see. Generally, only those who had the audacity to call him out on his troubling behavior ever faced his most vile side. Believe me, I let a lot slide over the years, but the way I was treated was simply inexcusable. I'm also very disappointed that Brad refused to post a message I relayed to all the friends and fans of the band. I'm not on social media, so I was just hoping he'd grant that small wish. In that message, I avoided mentioning any of the drama. I certainly didn't want to stir anything up. I just wanted to let everyone know I was leaving the band and also thank some people. In that upbeat transitional message, I also welcomed the new members. It seemed rather odd and spiteful for Brad to ignore my request. I suppose that would have made it more difficult for him to control the narrative. And Brad, you've wondered why so many people throughout your life have had issues with you? No, all those people aren't jealous of your success or just a bunch of haters. It's because you have treated people like crap and then don't make things right. It's actually pretty simple. That destructive behavior creates festering wounds. Unlike Brad, I don't have a history littered with burnt bridges and broken relationships. With hindsight, there are some clear patterns to your behavior. As Brad said online, it's a long story. For someone who likes to talk a lot, it's interesting just how quiet he's been about that story. So now I hope you better understand why I'm not happy with the way Brad has been spinning the narrative. It was a while ago. Get over it. Yeah, I agree. But it's hurtful to continue to see Brad publicly misrepresent what happened. That's not okay. Perhaps this sheds some light on why some people carry a strong dislike for Brad. There were multiple reasons why I left the band, but these issues were front and center. So, That takes us to recent events. My wife Emmalee posted a 1-star rating for Brad's new business. She quickly realized she was reviewing Brad the person and that it was unfair to the business itself and the other partners involved. In fact, she deleted the review immediately afterwards. She recognized she made a mistake and corrected it. Later in the day, one of your business partners reached out to her in private like a professional, asking about the rating. She apologized for posting it, admitted it was personal, and verified that it had been removed earlier. He appreciated her candidness and said there are no hard feelings. And she thought that was it. Hours later, however, she was informed by a mutual friend that Brad, despite being a business owner, had made a public post using Emilee's full name and photo, shaming her for the review she had already deleted. You claim she's obsessed with creating drama while manufacturing encouraging more of your own. You never told the truth about Darwin and I quitting the band. And you say, oh, just get over it when it comes up. Understandably, she's upset about years of your lying. In fact, in this post, you came up with a totally new narrative while arguing with her. That new nonsensical explanation is actually what caused me to create this video in the first place. So let's step through this latest revelation. Brad recently now said he actually replaced us before we embarked on our last tour. This is the first I've heard him give that explanation. So unbeknownst to us, we were actually no longer in the band, but nonetheless, Brad strung us along for another tour. How does that make sense? He never told us that we were replaced, and if he did, I sure as hell wouldn't have gone just to help him generate more free money for the band. So Brad is saying he secretly fired us before the tour, all the while pretending that we were still in the band. And then what? He was going to reveal that plan after the tour? Oh, surprise guys, you weren't actually even in the band that last tour. Do you really not see how disrespectful that is? Keep in mind, in Droids Attack, band members didn't get paid. We went on that tour not expecting any money other than small per diems. Our travel expenses generally came out of our own pockets. The only time in the entire history of the band that I got paid was at the end of the last tour, when I was given a grand total of $381. Over my many years in the band, the hundreds and hundreds of shows, just all the sacrifices, that works out to less than $1 per show. When you also factor in the many, many thousands that I personally contributed, overall the band was a big financial loss. That's okay. It was never about the money. Brad, I tried multiple times to hash things out with you professionally. You had plenty of opportunities to correct your actions. I certainly didn't want it to come to this, but I simply won't back down when I know I'm absolutely telling the truth. This is not a joke. I've never been treated like this by anyone else in my life. I'm still traumatized by what you did to me and others I care about. This is not okay. And you brought this upon yourself. So, despite what you may think, Brad, I don't hate you. I sincerely wish you whatever success you deserve. This new version of your story is insulting, as if what you've been saying for years wasn't enough. If we were already replaced and you had your new lineup, then why did you ask if we'd still play Destroy All Christmas? Why did we have to ask you to remove us as active members from social media 2 months after the tour already ended? Your stories simply don't add up. Brad, enough is enough. Stop it. So, Brad recently said he found his closure, and so here is mine. Thank you.